Warzone 2, despite being a long way out still by all indication, has been popping up into the discussion a lot this past week, whether by hopeful anticipation presented by the confirmation of Modern Warfare 2 or some of the details that have been brought into question in regards to the player experience upcoming. Today we're running down Modern Warfare 2's coming Warzone experience a little bit further. Last week we talked about some specific details in regards to rumored gameplay and map stuff like that, but today I want to take a little bit of a different approach to some of the given points of recent interest that have come into the conversation. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. What do you hope to see in Warzone 2? Where do you want to see the map set? What weapons do you want to see? Should there be prior integrations for Warzone 2 or just be a fresh restart? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. And if you're new to the channel, do be sure to subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Warzone, Warzone 2, Modern Warfare 2, and anything COD related. The next few months here should be incredibly insightful and interesting. So if you'd like to join us on that road to 500,000 subscribers, I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, today's the last day of the double upped weekends here of 30% off with my friends over at G Fuel. So if you're considering trying something out for the very first time, getting a restock, whatever the case, now's the final day of the best savings for quite a bit. Personally, and again, apologies for perhaps reiterating this to the nth degree, my favorites that I'd recommend: the new Morbius nectarine flavor, hype sauce, a sort of raspberry lemonade, strawberry banana, pink drip, and starfruit. All of those I'd highly recommend, so if you guys want to check those or anything else out, head on over to the link in the description below. But that said, let's jump into it. So first thing I want to jump on is the recent prospect of integrations, or rather continuations into the next iteration of Warzone. Recently, in an interview with the Washington Post, Josh Bridge and Ted Timmons were asked about the prospect of some of the upcoming challenges facing Warzone 2 while transitioning from the experience that we have right now. One of the biggest, though, being what are items that we see in our inventories right now in Warzone 1, will they transfer over to Warzone 2? Full transparency, it's a bit of a non-answer, but it does give us some insight into the behind-the-scenes look as to how these decisions are made, what has to be done in order to get from point A to point B, and perhaps give us an insight into what ultimately may happen. Now, when asked, will players be able to port over their purchased skins, Josh Bridge went into this sort of discussion and maybe roundabout answer, but gave us some insight in saying that it was a technical problem currently. They want to make meaningful decisions here with the game and how it's built out, but a lot of this actually comes down to sizing and data retention. Josh Bridge stated that a fair amount of the actually still large install size is now actually down to individually unlocked or purchased items rather than things of a fundamental nature like the massive map, the items and textures in it, and all the modes that go along with it, which is kind of curious. I'd never really considered that out of the, I guess, now thousands of items in the game, I never really considered those to be up there as one of the largest contenders and what takes away some of that file sizing. But I guess it does make sense. He ended up saying that they want to get to a more asynchronous streaming side of things where that sort of stuff could be in the question, but not detract from the player experience, i.e. hiking up that install size to where it's just not worth it, where it takes up a hard drive or just takes too long to download. Ultimately coming back to transferring inventory is just a technology issue, stating that the game is currently bloated. Now, in this discussion, it really didn't talk about weapon skins or operator skins or anything like that. It was kind of just a general question in regards to that. So maybe we see some of this happen and come over from Warzone 1 to Warzone 2, whether it be weapon skins, whether it be operators, we just don't quite know. But this brings into question plenty of the Warzone versus Warzone 2 fundamental discussion. At its base, you have to remember why Warzone 2 is even being created. One, to set up for the new generation of Call of Duty and gaming as a whole, while also being able to establish itself as a full-fledged gaming offering in various senses. That number one, the game is, as we've probably beaten into the ground by now, even as a free-to-play download, Warzone is a partitioned download of the Modern Warfare 2019 application executable file. It's not warzone.exe, it's still modernwarfare.exe. So therefore, it's always been limited to what Modern Warfare can and cannot do. And number two, when we think about the next generation of Warzone in a gameplay and technical sense, Modern Warfare never got a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series S and X build of the application. We're still on that technical last-gen build of it. So fundamentally speaking, this is meant to be a fresh start, something that gives Warzone its own legs and something to run on instead of being tethered to something else. So fundamentally, do we start fresh and gut everything and treat it as a new reborn Warzone experience, a new title of its own? Because if so, that's essentially what happens with mainline titles, and where this kind of parallel now of do our things transfer to the next game can maybe be answered by just what we see with every yearly release. Your content doesn't transfer from Black Ops Cold War to Vanguard, from Modern Warfare to Cold War, from Black Ops 4 to Modern Warfare, and so on before that. So theoretically speaking, when you consider purchased cosmetics, earned cosmetics from the Battle Pass or challenges, the fact that we got 3 years of what we did with Warzone by the time of Warzone 2's launch, To me, that's kind of impressive and a positive note in its own right. Would I be upset if I can't use some of these Modern Warfare 2019 cosmetics in Warzone 2? I mean, maybe, but at the same time, I got way more of a shelf life out of it than I ever would have expected in a standard game. Personally, I'm almost expecting a fresh start here with this. While they kind of leave the door open for this, and the possibility is definitely there that we could see some of this stuff transfer over, I kind of think that we'll see everything from Warzone 1 encapsulated in Warzone 1, while everything in Warzone 2 is built for Warzone 2 and beyond. And theoretically, that means that if this game is built properly as its own EXE and to be a long-standing, continued support game for other Call of Duties to be integrated into, this might actually be one of the last times we have to ponder this question for quite some time, because maybe these cosmetics in Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 can then last 4, 5, 6 years of relevance if we don't have to switch to another build until the next console generation. You can continually update that base game to keep going on the PC side of things, on the current generation side of things, as additional hardware and different variations of these consoles get their sort of midlife entries of like a slim or a pro version of the consoles. So right now we're kind of at that unique crossroads where on one hand we definitely do need to upgrade to keep up with the tech and hardware going for the next couple of years, but also we need to upgrade because we're just still on a last generation version of the game, hence why we don't see things like an FOV slider or other things like that for console. But I suppose when we think about the integration from Warzone 1 to Warzone 2, that can also be reciprocated then of would we see anything from Modern Warfare 2 introduced into Warzone 1? Will there be any integration here with that, or will that all be saved for Warzone 2? Now that is entirely speculative. There is no real definitive answer here on this. Insiders seem to think that we will be seeing that fresh start and nothing will be added into Warzone 1 come later this year at some point. But if that's the case, that then begs the question of what that will mean for the launch of Warzone 2, because I mean, Caldera hasn't exactly been a hit when you look at the reception overall since its launch. So if we were to go from an October to a March or April of sometime here in the next year, 5 to 6 months of no additional content being added in, no additional content support, and on a map that a lot of people don't necessarily like, would that then mean that we have an earlier launch than that March to April timeframe? And that was something that as of recently we may have talked about briefly, but it was brought into question when NFL Prospects actually mentioned that they saw Modern Warfare 2 ahead of when it was officially announced, but some of them mentioned that Warzone would be coming alongside Modern Warfare 2, begging the question of will we see this then in a November-December launch as opposed to what is previously expected of a March launch? That would be something that I guess would fill that gap, and for Warzone players specifically who don't really want to go over to the mainline multiplayer experience of Modern Warfare 2, that would then give them something to play as opposed to playing on Caldera with no integration, no real additional support for 4 to 5 months, if not a little more, after that launch of Modern Warfare 2. So right now, Warzone 2 is just in a very strange state in regards to what we know, but I guess that's to be expected. We're still a long ways off, and right now the marketing is absolutely shifting towards Modern Warfare 2 here in the next couple of months. So I don't know if we'll see any concrete answers for quite some time still, but with all the speculation, all these sort of teases and non-answers to big questions, it definitely is interesting. So that said, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Just wanted to fill you guys in here on a little bit of the discussion that was had as of recently from some of Raven's top brass. So that said, let me know your thoughts down below. What are you guys thinking here of this? Do you want to see some stuff integrated from Warzone 1 to Warzone 2, that content transfer over? Do you think we'll get an integration of Modern Warfare 2 weapons into the existing Warzone 1 experience if it doesn't launch for a couple of weeks to a couple of months after Modern Warfare 2? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone, Warzone 2, Modern Warfare 2, anything COD related, we got you covered here on the channel. So if you're at all interested, I'd love to have you in the community. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.